Everybody look good?
Looking good.
Well, you guys with your fake backgrounds, I still got my real shit back here. For at least a little bit longer. I did start like clearing off some of the upper shelves.
I saw that. Yeah, when we did our last podcast.
Yeah. They're cut off from like the screen. But yeah, I was like, I've started like just boxing up a whole bunch of DVD stuff just to be like, all right, I gotta be doing something here. Yeah,
I'm looking at doing some packing.
There you go.
Just want to get some stuff packed up, just like good to go.
All righty, let's record a podcast about some Andor.
Absolutely.
Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on? And Logan Wilkinson back. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. We are having like a little mini reunion of our Summer of Star Wars once again now, as we are talking today about the first 3 episodes of Andor. So yeah, it came out earlier this week, but it was 3 episodes of stuff. So rather than try and like squeeze that all in on Wednesday and Thursday with those of us with jobs and stuff, it was a hey, let's dive in. And sorry, I realized as I said that I did not mean that to be a slight, Cameron. I feel very terrible about that. My apologies.
Well, I was like,
especially
because
especially because I saw your reaction to it.
I know. I also caught that.
It more just a hey, like it's tough to sometimes watch all this stuff and then have our recording of a podcast the very next day. So we pushed our recording to Friday night to give a couple of us extra time, and it ended up taking all of us, the time anyway. Ripped my foot right out my mouth. So apologies for the slight delay on this episode, but here you are.
It's gonna be worth it.
Sure, we'll see. Yes. Why'd we pick it? Because it's the new Star Wars thing, of course. Big new Star Wars. Always fun to hop into that. Our history lesson here, originally released these 3 episodes, specifically September 21st, 2022. The series will be running through November 23rd, 2022.
Jesus, how many episodes are there?
It is a 12-episode season.
God, okay.
Yeah, yep. It's longer on the live action side of things than Star Wars has, or than Disney Plus has been doing a lot of this stuff. And then there's also already a second season, also of 12 episodes planned. So yeah.
Oh really? I thought I had heard that this is just like a 1 season like miniseries.
No, they greenlit the second season and debuted a bunch of drawings and stuff for it at D23.
Yeah,
interesting.
Similar like last year when they announced Andor, they put out a bunch of stuff for it as well.
Yeah. So our runtime across these 3 episodes ranges from 37 to 42 minutes. In the Star Wars TV timeline of things, we had The Book of Boba Fett came out end of last year up through February of 2022. We had Obi-Wan Kenobi from May 27th through June 22nd of 2022. Now we have Andor running through November. Following that, we have The Mandalorian Season 3 scheduled to launch in February of 2023. And also in 2023, the Ahsoka series. And also, one more that I have that was just on the next page, so I missed it there as a cutoff. Skeleton Crew, which did get like shown off, or it got like introduced at D23. And the only thing I know about it is that it's going to feature Jude Law in some capacity. I don't really remember much more other than that in terms of what Skeleton Crew is going to be about. But it's a live action series coming to Disney Plus. Our roll call here for at least these first 3 episodes. The director was Toby Haynes for all 3 of them. Previously, he had worked on a handful of episodes of Doctor Who, and the Rockenbach Falls episode of Sherlock, and then the USS Callister episode of Black Mirror, which is basically the Star Trek, like, not parody episode, but the Star Trek inspired episode that is
that was so good. That was such a great episode.
Good, dark, and twisted. And his Doctor Who work was also like recognizable from, I think, Tenet / Matt Smith eras.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I believe one of the ones he did was like The Waters of Mars, which is an underrated one in my book.
One of the specials. Yeah.
That is a very unique episode because it comes at a very specific time in Tenet's like timeline.
Yeah, he's
that
doing
makes
the
it very,
like farewell
very,
specials. Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah, it is I personally think that it's actually a very fascinating peek into the Doctor's character. So underrated episode for sure.
Yeah,
it's a great episode.
Let me just pull up real quick, since we're all Whovian fans here, what the other episodes were. I'm completely wrong. Water of Mars was not one of them. His episodes were The Pandorica Opens, The Big Bang, A Christmas Carol. So I think they're all Matt Smith, actually.
It sounds like these are all Matt Smith.
Yeah, The Big Bang, A Christmas Carol, The Impossible Astronaut, and Day of the Moon.
Impossible Astronaut's a great episode.
Yeah.
Those episodes are all pretty bangers, but they're also all kind of outside of the last two. I think they're all pretty standalone. So,
yeah.
Christmas Carol.
I don't know if I would call the Pandorica Opens standalone.
Oh, sorry, not. I forgot about Pandorica Opens. That one is well connected as well. No,
yeah.
Here's the thing. You said the Christmas Carol episode, and that's one of the fucking weirdest episodes of Doctor Who there's ever been, in my opinion. It's just super weird.
Yeah. Let me double check which one that was. Okay, yeah, that is it's because they have like multiple Christmas Carol themed episodes, of course, and that is the one with where they have like the cryogenically frozen lady and flying sharkfish or whatever. Anyway,
that's a super weird episode.
It is indeed. The writer across these 3 episodes is Tony Gilroy. Long lineage of work going all the way back to his work on the film Armageddon. He was also responsible for adapting the Bourne series and writing Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, Bourne Ultimatum, and Bourne Legacy. And he was one of the people who worked on Rogue One. So he's kind of carrying on the Rogue One lineage here. Our starring credits here, we have, of course, Diego Luna as Cassian Andor. One of his earliest works was Y tu mamá también. He was also in the film Milk. He, of course, was Cassian in Rogue One. And recently he was in the series Narcos Mexico. Kyle Soler playing the Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn here. Previously has been in Anna Karenina, You, Me, and the Apocalypse, Marrowbone, and The Titan. Adria Arjona playing Bix Kalin. She was previously in True Detective, 6 Underground, recently in Morbius, It's Morbin Time, and the recent Netflix Father of the Bride remake.
I didn't want that. By the way, shout out to You, Me, and the Apocalypse, because that was a wild-ass show.
There you go. Joplin Sibtain, that may be something far more Irish or something, I don't know. Playing Brasso, previously was in, he was a voice in Horizon Zero Dawn. He was in the HBO series Avenue 5. Recently, he was in the games Triangle Strategy and Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga earlier this year. James McArdle playing Tim. He was previously in The Force Awakens as a completely different character, whose name was, what was it? Nick Lev? Nivlek. Yeah. It's basically Kelvin backwards, as a J.J. Abrams Star Trek Easter egg, I guess. Anyway, he was also in Mary Queen of Scots and Mayor of Easttown. Rupert Vanistart playing Chief Hein in the first episode here. Wanted to give him a shout out too, because A, I really like him in that scene, but B, he's got a nice long lineage, having been in Four Weddings and a Funeral all the way back in the day, as well as Braveheart. And then more recently, he was in Game of Thrones as Royce. One of them.
Oh,
Lord Royce, yeah.
And yeah, Lord of Runestone in the Vale. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Dave Chapman playing B2 EMO or B2 Emo. Previously was a BB-8 performer in the sequel trilogy. He was also in Solo, a Star Wars story, as another miscellaneous performer, including the crime boss lady at the beginning who can't deal with the light. He basically was the puppeteer for that, I guess. And he was also in the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance series as, I believe, another performer / puppeteer. Antonio Vigna, give a shout out to as young Cassian / Casa. He's been in a number of little Mexican-based programming, including Jose El Príncipe de la Canción. I believe is the Prince of the Song, I think is what it was when I looked it up. I don't remember. My Spanish is very rough these days. Do you have a correction for me there, Cam? Okay.
As somebody who had to pronounce a lot of Spanish last names today at work, it's I'm not gonna throw stones when I live in a glass house. Okay.
All right.
But
Fiona Shaw playing Marva Andor. Want to give a shout out to her being in Super Mario Bros. All the way back in the day. Of course, she is probably best known to audiences as Aunt Petunia in the Harry Potter series.
She's great.
Of Dursley fame. She was in the Enola Holmes film on Netflix. And she's in the series Killing Eve.
I knew that one.
And then lastly, of course, Stellan Skarsgård in here as Luthen Rail. Credits going back to stuff like Good Will Hunting, and then a whole bunch of series work. Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's Bootstrap Bill. The Mamma Mia series, of course, where he's also Bill. The Thor series, where he is Eric Selvig, and Dune, where I don't remember his character, but he was definitely one of those grotesque.
He's the goo monster guy,
the goo monster guy, indeed.
He's a duke. He's one of the anyway.
Yeah.
I want to give actually a special shout out. He's also the journalist in the original trilogy of A Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
I thought that was the case as well, but I didn't see that when I was just kind of scrolling through his credits. I was like,
you know what? No, I don't think he. Sorry, he may not be the journalist. I think he might be. No, I think he's the journalist.
Maybe
I might be wrong.
I'm on it.
I could be wrong. Yeah,
I'm
be on it. Somebody be on. He's in the first film. I don't remember if he's
or it's just another one of the Skarsgårds, because there are a lot of them.
There are a lot.
That's
of them.
true. There are a lot of Skarsgårds. And they're all super cool dudes.
I did get to because that would have been what the Dutch version of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
No, it's Swedish.
Swedish, okay.
It's Swedish.
Because this is a Star Wars based property, I got to dust off my old kind of Star Wars template. So in the terms of the trivia here, for they have a bad feeling about this section, we don't have any bad feelings yet. They have not found a way to squeeze that iconic line into the series so far, but who knows if it will come. In the galactic timeline, this series is taking place in 5 BBY, which it very helpfully gave us right in one of the intro screens. As
in update?
Yep.
It is actually the opposite. He is not in the Swedish version, but he's in the original 2011 David Fincher movie.
There you go.
Really? He's not in the original?
Nope.
I just thought he was in the original.
But he's in the 2011 one.
All right. So yes, this occurs in 5 BBY before the Battle of Yavin. Other notable events occurring in 5 BBY. The mission to Tamsai Prime occurs, in which Jyn Erso is abandoned by Saw Gerrera. we've seen from like trailers and stuff that Saw Gerrera is going to be in this season, so maybe we will see that historical event or a reference to it. And then a whole bunch of Rebels season 1 stuff occurs here, including the Spectres conduct a heist in Capital City, meeting the force-sensitive Lothalite thief Ezra Bridger. He's recruited by the Spectres as their leader. Kanan Jarrus takes up the ways of the Jedi once more and takes on Bridger as his Padawan learner. And then various other Star Wars Rebels events for the first 5-6 episodes of that season, I believe, before it crosses over into 4 BBY.
4 BBY. Yeah.
Some other trivia here. Unlike The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which used stagecraft, or the volume, to create virtual sets and locations in most scenes, that technology wasn't really used in this show. Instead, real large-scale sets were built at Pinewood Studios, and much of the filming took place on location.
We'll probably get to this in later on. We kind of get to the episode itself, but one of the very first things I thought of when like the episode first began was, this looks real. Because I just think, as I don't know if I had noticed it as much at times in Mandalorian in the first season, but like once I knew about like it later on, it became harder to notice. And I think it's particularly noticeable in Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan at times. And I think this just looks so much better because of it. It looks so good.
Yeah.
The intricacies of the sets that they have here for the I don't want I mean, I guess it's just the shanty town, like the kind of like decrepit part of the mining facility where like the scrap area.
Yeah.
Right.
Ferrix,
yeah. That entire area is so well detailed, and you can tell that when people are walking around it, things lead to other things. Like shots continuation works in that way. And it was just super and extraordinarily well done. I was really, really impressed by it. I did not know that it was. I thought they were just like were being smart with their camera edits, but no, it turns out it's that. I think that was actually like, it's spectacular seeing real sets again.
Yeah, so that's definitely a thing that they touted a lot going into this one, was like the emphasis on doing things on location, getting out in the world, finding these kinds of things, building sets and all that stuff. Yeah. To give it more of a grounded feel, I think is how it was very much kind of like pitched. But similarly, in that vein, in universe, Marva's home was built out of parts from old spaceships. Fiona Shaw was so amazed by the set that was built for her character that she would often go outside just to stare at it.
It's really sweet.
Oh yeah, because it's from the stripped out parts from the ship.
Yeah.
That like there's so many things. There's so many like in its own show, its own like its compressed little own universe of Easter eggs that it has for itself is phenomenal. Yeah. I was so blown away by just like all the pieces I was able to put together by the end of the 3rd episode.
Yep. Casa being taken by Marva is an allusion to his line in Rogue One, where he says, "I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You're not the only one who lost everything." And those flashback scenes are taking place circa 20 BBY, because according to Wikipedia / the galactic timeline of things, Cassian Andor was born 26 BBY. And per the Rogue One visual dictionary or whatever, he was identified in that as having been born on Fest. So the plot line of everything says Fest, but he was actually in this in Canary, is kind of like a little retconning / still kind of playing with like the fact that they were covering up his identity. That also puts like those flashback sequences amidst the Clone Wars, basically. And specifically the ship that comes in. There's a little bit of like debate on this, I think, that I've seen, because they're wearing their uniforms, identify them as separatists, but they like specifically Fiona Shaw's character has a line about Republic ships coming in after them. So, but yes, that's the era that whole bit is taking place in.
So canonically, Diego Luna is 21 years old here.
I believe so. Yes.
Right. Listen, if that man looks at me and tells me he's 21, I will believe him, because I will get lost in those eyes.
I just quickly did a Google search. Diego Luna in real life is 42. I just wanted to say that. Yeah. So again, but as someone who's been like
if he was in his 30s, we could believe that he was a teenager. That's how television age logic works.
As someone who's long said Star Wars works best when you just don't think about the canon, this is another instance where it's like, yeah, I assumed he was like in his mid 30s in Rogue One. So the fact that he was 26 is like, all right, that's dumb, but like, sure, like let's just run with it. Let's just don't think about it. And yeah.
If Diego Luna looks at you with his gorgeous
he's a very beautiful, he's a very handsome man. The whole cast is
tells you
people here.
And tells you, listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody asks, I'm 21.
Yeah.
I'll be like, all right, as long as you're not hitting on like young girls, that's fine.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. So it's okay.
I'll go one further. I'll be like, you're right. And I was so annoyed by your insistence that you were only 21 and I'll just continue the lie with him like his buddy does.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good scene.
Such a good moment.
Yeah.
And you insulted my choice of beverage.
Yeah. And that's all I had for the trivia on this one. There's I'm sure there is more out there. But like a lot of this is playing kind of like new with like stuff like the Preox. That whole organization is like completely brand new for this and is just kind of like a security arm of the Empire. Maybe.
Oh no,
at least they think they are.
It's corp. Like his whole line about
it's like corporate security kind of stuff.
We're the first line of defense of the Empire. That's like mall cop talk.
Yeah,
like that's. Yes. Like they basically these are fucking mall cops.
Yeah,
and because they're corp, like it's like the thing about Star Wars is that there is an untapped history of corporate control to the brink of like end stage capitalism level of corporate like control of entire planets and systems that is never really explained and is kind of always just been like, yeah, that's the way it is, and it's like, and you're defending this order, but whatever, you're the good guys, I'm sure. Like, and in the rise of the Empire, it has just been even more firmly, it's either you are in Imperial territory or corporate-owned territory, and either way, you have a yoke of oppression on you. And I love that actually, instead of just going with the traditional, let's put stormtroopers here, let's bring in, like, this is Imperial this, Imperial that, it's, no, we're going to create an entire corporation of, like, like a corporate-owned star system, and because 2 guys got killed, some corpo officer, like shit stain who has a stick up his butt because he probably couldn't pass the psychological analysis to become a stormtrooper even. It's like these third-rate wannabe stormtroopers get all in their jimmies and end up raiding one of their own planets and fucking just, oh my God, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. I love that they're tapping into it. It makes me really happy.
All right. Well, we've got a little bit from Cam there, so I'll throw it to you, Logan, to kick us off in terms of like, what'd you think of the beginning of Andor here?
I like it. I think that the Star Wars live action shows have been probably really the only thing happening in Star Wars the last few years, since Rise of Skywalker, but also fairly good too, right? I mean, I think for every kind of swing and a miss, like Book of Boba Fett, you get a show like The Mandalorian, which is great, right? And I think we'd all agree is really great. And I think Obi-Wan kind of fits somewhere in between those two extremes, and has really, really great moments and also stuff that I don't like as much. And so I think for this to come out and just instantly feel different and unique and utterly its own, like we're on a good run of Disney Plus shows right now. We had Miss Marvel, we've had She-Hulk, and we've had Andor, and they've all been very different in their own way, but each I think has kind of stood unique from a lot of the earlier Disney Plus shows, Star Wars or MCU, that felt kind of samey at times and suffered from looking the same and feeling the same at moments. And, the word I have seen thrown around a lot on the timeline that I'll, take and run with is it's very film noir-esque, especially like the opening, like 10 minutes of that first episode where it's just raining and he's going into a brothel and he's getting into a fight and he's killing a man in cold blood by and it's just all this stuff that's happening. It could be the start of like the Maltese Falcon or something, right? Or Chinatown.
Or Blade Runner 2049, yeah.
Right, yeah, very Blade Runner vibes, right? And it's very film noir-esque, and it's excellent. I think that carries forward from those opening like 10 or so minutes through everything we've gotten so far. I think that as someone who likes Star Wars just being weird and getting into like these little nooks and crannies of the universe that isn't nice and shiny. I think Andor excels because it's also like weird, and it is, not the same thing we've seen before. I mean, I didn't even think about the fact that, like we're not getting stormtroopers as the villains, but that's such a smart idea. It's such a smart twist. And the fact that this is going to be a show that presumably is not going to have lightsabers and Jedis and that kind of stuff, right? And I think we all collectively, you can go listen to Summer of Star Wars, really, really love Rogue One, right? We all kind of collectively thought it was the best thing Star Wars had done outside of like the original trilogy, pretty much. And so I think if they can basically Rogue One and give me a backstory to that makes that movie even better, that makes the original trilogy even better, I'm all for that. And the first 3 episodes, I think, have totally delivered that. I think Cassian was and is such a interesting, compelling character. And I think so much of the cast around him is great. I like Fiona Shaw in pretty much anything because I think she's great. I think, anytime Star Wars introduces a new droid, I immediately fall for it. They just have an incredible 100% success rate on that. And this one is charming in such a unique and fun new way. And yeah, I think the bad guy at the heart of this is fun because he isn't Emperor Palpatine for starters, but he isn't Darth Vader, right? He isn't an Inquisitor. He isn't someone important even. He's just like,
he's a shitty bureaucrat.
Yeah, he's not even like a manager. He's like an assistant manager bureaucrat, and it's kind of excellent, right? That we're just getting
he's Dwight Schrute. He's Dwight Schrute.
He's Dwight Schrute. He's gone power mad.
If Dwight Schrute was a mall cop, that's who it is.
Yeah. And it's excellent, like because we're just getting this story that isn't important at all. Is such a non-important thing that the manager, the guy in charge, has just gone off to a conference, right? But is going to end up leading to like this like really important moment for Cassian that will lead him kind of on the path to the rebellion and on the path to obviously what happens in Rogue One. But like, I love the fact that it is just a small, tiny little speck of a story in this giant universe, and I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Cameron, one of my favorite things. Oh yeah, one of my favorite things is when the man, like when the person who's actually in charge tells him, like he comes to him, he says, "Well, this I stayed up all night, sir," and like he goes, "Okay, well, make it look like an accident, like in your report." And he went, "What?" He goes, "They were at a brothel we're not supposed to have." Like he walks through where, like, what reporting this as a murder will lead to. And despite that, the moron does it anyway. And it's so good to see there is a level of competent incompetency that I love to see, because that is the definition of like corporate bureaucracy. Is things in corporate bureaucracy are incompetent. But the people who are working them are themselves not incompetent necessarily.
Right.
But it's that playing in that gray area of, well, the rule is I have to do, like the rules are that we have to do this. But if we do this, it's going to cause all these problems. So we're not going to do X. Like X will lead to these problems. We're not going to do X. And that's the competency within incompetence working. Then you get incompetent within incompetency. And I've seen this at plenty of places that I've worked at, where somebody gets it into their head, well, this is how things are supposed to go. We're by the book, by the rules. And they don't think about the ripple effects of the consequences of what they decide. this went from being like like possible a fight that escalated into a double homicide into now a full-blown corporate incident where explosives and like things blew up, like people were like the corporate officers murdered a man in the streets,
and then many of them also died.
Yeah, and then a bunch of them were killed. So it went from just 2 guys who died because they messed with somebody they shouldn't have in a place they weren't supposed to be, to 10 plus people dead now, and on a corporate and an incident and like multiple incidents on multiple planets. Like, it's not good. Like, it's blown up entire. And so when he's looking at the wreckage in episode 3 and just staring at it, and it's like you can just see the cogs working in his head as it catches up to him about how badly he's lost control of the situation.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see, because you were I don't know about you guys, but I was waiting for that moment, all 3 episodes, ever since his coworkers were basically shit talking him, saying, "Oh, that fucking guy, we're gonna have to stay all not like all of that." Like, I'm like, yes, it's perfect. They perfectly nail every aspect of the corporate oligarchy or the corporate structure, and just the incompetence, being competent within incompetence, and then the incompetence of being part of something that's incompetent. It's done spectacularly well, and that's one of my favorite parts about it. Is like, yeah, Cassie and Andor are just like dudes were messing with him, and he was just like he didn't mean to kill a guy, and then that led to him having to try to cover up the murder. Or like the accidental, like the manslaughter he did. He committed murder to cover up his manslaughter.
Yeah.
And it should be an isolated incident. And like for every reason his boss gave him, and the dude, and he was emboldened the moment the dude who, if we thought this guy, for what's the character's name? The bureaucratic officer?
It's Karn, Cyril Karn.
Karn, yeah. For Karn to then get emboldened by a dude who, earlier I said a dude who couldn't pass the psyche test or become a stormtrooper. This guy couldn't pass the psyche test to just be like a fucking cleanup droid on a starship. Like, this dude is off the fucking rails. And on top of that, he's drunk because he has his little like stash of booze that he keeps on him. Well, he's keeping a sniper, like a sniper position. Like, this is the wrong person got in front of the wrong person, and they just rile each other up. And then on top of that, it's very obvious that like Karn has no idea how to actually talk to grunts on the battle, like grunts in the security force, because he's a pompous dick, and he gives a super shitty that entire monologue of like, you know, his entire shitty monologue before they're about to go off and drop off onto Ferrix is phenomenal, because it's just like, yeah, I have been in those meetings. I have been in those meetings where somebody who's important to the company says something and we all have to clap and congratulate them on a speech, even though it's shit.
I will give a retroactive shout out because I didn't pull him in. I thought about pulling him in initially into the casting. I did not, though. But a shout out to Alex Ferns, who's playing Sergeant Kostek, who's basically like the you know, on the ground commander guy that I think you were alluding to there with the
Scottish dude. Yes, it's awesome.
Because shout out to him. He played a character named Trevor in EastEnders, so that's nice.
Yeah, he did.
But more recently, he was the commissioner in The Batman. That comes in as like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then obviously gets, you know, as most commissioners do, taken out pretty quickly. But yeah, he was in The Batman as well. And he's just, he's a lot of fun in this, in the way he is emboldening all the worst elements of Karn. And yeah, like I love the awkwardness of that, like, let's rally the troops kind of speech, and Karn is just terrible at it, and he's like, good work, sir. Yes, good work.
Inspiring.
Inspiring.
Dude, that entire, my first thought when I saw that ship, I was like, oh my god, it's a ship full of bootlickers.
Yeah.
Like,
it
was wild.
The vibes of like MAGA militia in this are rampant to me. Dude,
the LAPD or LA Sheriff's Office vibes of that unit were like off the charts.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. I'm surprised like they didn't kill more people.
Yeah. And maybe
give it time
as a backlash they will in episodes to come.
Exactly.
In terms of other thoughts I have on the series, I'm with I think both of you in that I'm like really enjoying this, and I will say in that vein, I'm really glad they gave all 3 of these episodes at once, because I think especially episode 3 does such a like first 2 episodes are doing a lot of like really cool place setting, and there's like just so many really cool small moments. Like I love every little bit that Cassian is doing to try and cover up the thing, and his ultimate undoing ends up being the calm that he puts in BMO. But like every other thing like was, you know, he was changing data logs on the ship and getting himself an alibi, and you know the fact that it's a calm and, you know, jealousy, misunderstood jealousy of this guy Tim, that like ends up being
Tim fucking sucks.
Cassian's
Can we just say
undoing.
it?
Oh yeah, no, he definitely does.
Tim fucking sucks.
He's definitely like
Tim.
a you know a sad jealous boyfriend guy that is incredibly insecure and stuff. And so I didn't feel too bad when he dies at the end. I was like, okay,
when he died,
he got his little redemptive
like
moment trying to save Bix. But yeah,
it just showed he was a piece like that entire time. Like he so misread Cassian and Binks's relationship so badly.
Oh, I don't think he did. I mean, they very clearly had a relationship.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think Cassian was like actively pursuing it, but like he, you know, is a little more touchy-feely than he needed to be, like at the bar, which Tim oversees and says, all right, that's the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and like leave this anonymous tip. But yeah, like,
but also here's at the end of the day, Tim's a fucking narc.
Yeah.
And we don't stand narcs on this podcast.
Right. Here's the thing.
D plus show distinctly a non-narc podcast.
I didn't know his name was Tim or whatever, but like, I mean, I thought that he was with like fine.
Two
right?
M's,
like,
by the way. Tim with 2 M's.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Worst
but
fucking
like,
thing.
I think he's fine. But like, I think he's someone who
just real quick. I don't think we need like Star Wars has enough dumb, wild, stupid names. Like they went from Luke to like names like Chirrut and Baze in Rogue One. Like I'm okay with there being a Tim who is Tim when we also have Bix and Cyril and
yeah,
Brasso.
but it's Tim with 2 M's. Why the 2 M's? Luke didn't have 2 U's or 2 K's. We didn't need that.
I think
just TIM, Tim. It would have been fine. He doesn't need 2 M's. 2 M's is atrocious.
Did Jabba need 2 B's?
That's true.
Yeah, because Jabba.
Here's the thing. Tim
Otherwise,
fine,
it would have been Yabba.
I liked him in the sense that, again, like so much of this story, he's just a dude who isn't part of the rebellion or part of the like empire or part of anything larger. He's just like a dude on a random ass planet who works in a shop, and you know, he just tries to work his 9 to 5 and spend time with his girlfriend, right? And then like all of a sudden,
but he's also
you have
a
this,
snitch.
Like, you have this swashbuckling like pirate guy basically slide in here into your girl's DMs, and it's like, yeah, like his immediate like, this dude is no good. Which, to be fair to Tim, is 100% correct.
Oh yeah, like, accurate, 100% accurate. That vibe that he picked up, correct.
Yeah, the dude who's trying to get your girl like, just murdered 2 people, is on the lam and is dragging you into the thing, and it's like a totally understandable reaction to be like, what the hell is going on? I will also say the one element I'll give to Tim's defense as well is there's no reason why Bix shouldn't have just told him certain things at a certain point in time. Like her trying to keep him out of it just led to so much shit happening as well, right? If they just had a healthy communicative relationship, none of this would have happened.
It's very clear that Tim is a snitch and a bootlicker.
All right,
so why would his smuggler girlfriend...
Cam, I'm going to shut this down right now, because if somebody kills me and you know who it is and you don't tell anybody because you think that would be snitching, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself, Cameron.
No. That's different. First off, I wouldn't go to the police. I'd get revenge for you, because that's what friendship does.
No, you wouldn't.
That's what friendship is. No, you're right. I mean, I don't know if I'd tell somebody. I wouldn't tell the cops.
You'd go on a podcast about it. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I'd do a serial. I'd make sure your guy got put in prison eventually.
Awesome, yeah.
No. I mean, he's the thing about it is like, first off, Bix 100% being shady as fuck. But here's the thing: if he had just gone up to Bix after in the bar and just been like, "Hey, I saw you with Cassian. Like, what's going on here?" Instead of like confronting her and being open and honest, like in their relationship, he does it. And then after he snitches, he then has sex with Bix.
Yeah. I think both are guilty. I think both should have just been honest.
And he doesn't tell anything.
Another.
They spent all night together. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah. Because he's just clearly very purely acting from like insecurity and jealousy. Yeah. Like he already tried following her earlier in the series
and got lost.
And botching it like a total turd.
Yeah. So like he's like he to Logan's point, he is just a guy. He's collateral damage in the story of Cassian and the eventual rebellion and all that stuff.
He got what was coming to him. That's all I gotta say.
No. All right. He didn't deserve to die. He's just like a dude. That's the thing. Like, Tim is just like, he's just like an everyman random dude who got caught up in this larger thing. Like, he doesn't deserve to die. Like, just because he doesn't make every heroic decision is like, but that's just a person. Like, most people aren't necessarily out to try to do this thing. They're like, hey, this guy's getting with my girl. I think I want to stop that. Right. And then they just kind of, I think him and Bix each are guilty in not talking to one another. And if they both just communicated from the jump, Well,
no, because if Bix had told Tim would have ratted her out.
No, he wouldn't have.
I don't.
Yeah, the moment that he thinks that they're hooking up, he would have ratted her out first.
No, I don't think so.
He had incentive to rat out Cassian because he is feeling jealous and cuckolded.
Right.
He would not rat out Bix.
Yeah.
Like
if
No,
I don't
Cameron,
know what to tell you, man. A lover scorns. A lover scorns. A lover scorns.
This is such an intense like Tim hatred. I did not expect it.
I did not. Sorry, I don't know why I'm going so hard on this. I'm going to stop.
That's what's annoying me the most is that you're going so unbelievably belligerently hard on this stupid nonsense.
I shouldn't. I'm sorry.
So anyway, on to other aspects of the story. Like we already touched on it, but I absolutely love it. And part of me is also like very curious, since we're now kind of kicking things off and Cassian is presumably leaving, like all these people that we got to spend time with and meet and get introduced to in these first few episodes, like I don't like theoretically, I would imagine they're still going to have some kind of presence. I mean, obviously the security force people are probably going to just be the big bad for the season and kind of continue following. But like his buddy that helps him come up with the alibi and then also has the MVP move of sabotaging the ship, because as soon as he was walking out, I'm like, oh, he did something to that ship. So when the guy's like going to, I was like, what did he do to the ship? Did he like,
I didn't
plant
even
an
pick up on
explosive or
that.
something?
I didn't pick up on that, and it was the best thing ever. The way that it happened, it was so good.
Yeah. So like I like that guy and that friendship and relationship, like I got to imagine the guy that like tried to shake Cassian down with like the muscle that he brought in, and the muscle's just like, what, he told me to stand here. Like
so good.
Like I love that scene, and they even had like, because we don't really see either of those characters again, but in the second episode there is like this little like
a moment, right?
They have little moments that were like just little establishing shots to show where like the people in this town are at, the people that we got introduced to. Here's kind of like an update, or here's them like reacting to or looking at something
during the morning gong ceremony, right?
Yeah. So
that's why I don't think these guys are coming back, just because we got two really lengthy shots of the dude who rings the gong in the town. I don't think they're coming.
I mean, even that is a nice thing that is setting up everybody being a cab and basically just like setting off the alarm, banging the metal and stuff like that.
Shout out to Ferrix being straight up a cab. Fucking loved it.
Yeah.
So good. Do you know what that sound is? That's the sound of a reckoning.
Yeah.
God damn, that was good.
So like, but like the show has all of those great little moments and stuff that are just helping to us, like, even if they only exist to help establish Cassian's character or the kind of people that Cassian dealt with and their impressions of him. Like the fact that the guy's like, I'm not going to be another one that just like lets you talk your way out of it until I forget how much you owe me. Like that tells me something I didn't know about Cassian before.
It further emphasizes why everybody tells Cassian they're not going to lend him money.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like all of this to say I loved this 3 episodes as like a unit and almost wish it had just been like one super long premiere episode. And so I think they were absolutely spot on of like giving all 3 of these episodes out at once.
At the same time.
And I'm going to be very curious how the pace holds up. Because I enjoyed the episodes in and of themselves, but like the 3rd episode is so clearly the 3rd act of that 3 episode structure, that 3 episode arc, that like in this next episode I'm like, okay, is this going to, not now that I'm having to wait week to week, is it going to have, you know, am I going to like leave off on like a I feel unsatisfied by that ending, or is it going to leave me like wanting to just, you know, see what happens in the next week and stuff. So I'll be curious to see how like the pacing of the rest of the series comes out compared to this first little 3 episode chunk. But yeah, there's just a lot of good fun stuff in there. We've already talked about some of them. Like I really enjoyed that scene with the Chief basically being like, no, here's why it needs to be an accident. Here's why you wasted so much time staying up and doing all even just the beginning, the little dressing down of like, did you modify your uniform? Like, like, you know, that's against regulations and you seem like a by the book kind of guy. So like,
right.
But the, you know, the way he defends himself in like, yes, I, you know, did a light tailoring. It's like, all right. Yeah. I like that scene in and of itself. I'm like, oh, you're going to be a fun, shitty Javert for Cassian in this. I'm going to love this. And I hope that we get to see your like comeuppance, you know, like every time we get to see your comeuppance, it's going to be very satisfying. And it especially is satisfying in episode 3 here. And yeah, that like, you know, Apocalypse Now moment where he's just kind of like broken while being screamed at was a lot of fun.
So good.
And like, especially he is as going into it, like, I think they did a interesting job. Like at least I didn't know anything about the character going into it. Admittedly, I wasn't like keeping an eye on too much stuff. Like apart from, and I actually even saw this like written up somewhere, like there was a Lego set on the like ambush at Ferrix or something. And so like he was one of the figures alongside Cassian and Stellan Skarsgård's character. And everybody's been like, who the heck is this guy? And like watching these first episodes, I'm like, I know who this guy is now. And yeah, that's cool that they kept him in, or that they put him in a little Lego set for Star Wars stuff.
That's wild. I didn't know they had that Lego set out already. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if it's out already, but it's like, it might be like it was available for pre-order or something like that. Actually, no, I think it's out now. They've done that occasionally as like, if you want to go down this rabbit hole. Yeah. Apparently a recent set appears to have like leaked information about like Black Panther 2 coming out. So I was like, I haven't paid too much attention to it, but yeah, that's why like back with Grogu and stuff, they didn't have any Mandalorian merch going into it because they wanted to keep that as a surprise, because toys are very often what ended up spoiling that. But anyway,
toys spoil every major like action film out there that has to do with like tie-in with like kids and stuff.
Yeah,
they spoil it.
So yeah, this is definitely a lot of fun. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying kind of that, the slice of life nature that we're getting of it. I've started watching, I didn't get too far into it, but like after watching this, I did start watching Rogue One again. And like, even that introduction that we got in Rogue One to Cassian's character was just such an interesting, like, look at a character that we'd never really seen in Star Wars, of like, he basically kills his own ally to get away, because he knows that the guy who's informant is not going to be able to. So like he's a much more ruthless character, and I like that we're getting to see kind of like what led him to be that, and seemingly he's going to basically be a Padawan to Stellan Skarsgård's character. So looking forward to getting all the extra lessons that he's going to get from them. Any other favorite moments or favorite sequences or bits and stuff that anybody wants to give some shout out to?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Logan.
I was just gonna say, like, to tie into the Rogue One-ness of it, right? Like, I think Cassian is a character who is so interest in within the larger Star Wars universe, right? Because he is someone who just doesn't even just live, but like rolls around and relishes this gray area. And it's so fascinating to see that as like the protagonist of a Star Wars story. And one who is unquestionably who will be doing good later on by the time of like Rogue One and the Rebellion, but you know, is not immune to kind of using any means necessary to justify kind of the ends justifying the means. And I also think that what is sort of interesting about him is how he views like the people around him, right? Like the scene Trevor points out in Rogue One, like, yeah, he kills like the informant because he knows he can't get away. But another way to view that is like he kills the informant because he knows that if he doesn't, he'll probably suffer worse under Imperial interrogation. It just kind of puts him out of his misery quickly, right? And so like he also, I think, understands in a way that a lot of the main Star Wars original trilogy cast doesn't, how harsh and brutal the world and empire is, right? Because like when you think about like the actual heroes at the heart of the original trilogy, Leia's a princess and Luke is a farm boy on a faraway planet. Like only Han and Chewie have any sort of experience with the larger world. They're the ones who are kind of routinely being like, no, it's not this easy. No, like you shouldn't do this. Like it's gonna be really shitty and terrible and awful. And Luke and Leia are kind of the opposites. You kind of keep bringing him back into it, but like in some ways he is the most aware of just how harsh the world is. And I think Cassian kind of has that vibe to him. And you know, in another life, if things don't go the way they do in Rogue One, he's right there alongside Han, right? And as like another kind of roguish, you know, rebel heartthrob. And so I think it's sort of interesting to see almost what Han's arc could have been in like another kind of timeline.
Yep. Cam, throw it back to you.
Yeah, I think a lot of unspoken things were that I don't think we touched on in this when we talked about anything, is Cassian's origin is so much more interesting. And it's not just because, oh yeah, he did this stuff and like we're finding out more about him. It's actually, hey, here's something you didn't know about Cassian. He's actually the child of people that got abandoned on a mining planet that went bad. And he like literally grew up in a like lost boys, lost children.
Yeah,
Lord of the Flies kind of. Well, not Lord of the Flies, but like it was definitely like, children are running the thing because all the parents are gone. That was like, that was a fascinating thing of like having that realization, like looking around after a couple, like after like the second scene of going back to that like tribal kind of element and being like, why are these all kids? Where are the parents? Mm-hmm. What's going on? And then getting that line a couple episodes in of like, oh, a terrible mining accident killed like everyone, basically being like, oh, and then because we also see the, you know, the quarry or whatever in one of those scenes of like, oh yeah, that's those kids are just trying to survive because they've lost all of the adults around them.
It's not just that, it's like that quarry is also like, it's part quarry and part crater.
Yeah. The
way that it's been like blown apart. It's super cool. Like the work on that was awesome, but I really loved the aspect of this these children of the corn / like Lord of the Flies / Lost Boys type situation. And the oldest kid, their leader, is the one that's killed. And like, there's that moment of like all of that. But what I love about it is that it's been, 15 years since then? And Cassian's still chasing down leads on his sister. And that moment when he looks back at her in the, I think that's in the third episode, right? Or maybe that's the end of I think it's the end of the second, maybe.
Yeah.
When he looks back at her, and that's that super tender moment in my mind is like, oh, he's never going to see her again. Like this is something happens that like leads him off of the planet or something. And it's true. But what's interesting also is like, okay, so at some point people went back or something happened there. And now he's trying to track down his sister. And I like that there's a through line for Cassian where, yeah, he's trying to do the day-to-day thing, try to survive, but he has a little bit of like, I'm trying to find this impossible person to find.
Right.
And the emotional impact of Cassian as Casa trying to get in on the war paint and an older kid like pushing him away because he's too young, and then the oldest leader like saying no, like let him in, like it's time for him to be part of this, and like he's old enough, but he's also like being pulled along, and at the end of the slide, like it's very interesting to see in such a short brief amount of time this tribal structure really thoroughly explained in a way, while at the same time they're not speaking any like legible language, like audible, like complete gibberish language they're using, but it's so well done and it's so well acted. These like they had a bunch of children actors who did an amazing job. And it breaks my heart to think about that little girl waiting for her brother to come home, and he doesn't, because he got absconded by these smugglers, by these thieves. Yeah. It's one part really sad, but it's also one part really awesome, because it's interesting that whenever he's in trouble, the place he goes back to is that abandoned, stripped down hull of a ship, and that when he wakes up in the first episode after his night of murder and manslaughter
and debauchery, right?
Yeah. And he sits up. It's the same frame to frame shot of him waking up to seeing going into space for the first time and realizing the universe is so much bigger. And it's like there's so many, like I said, in this contained Andor series, there's so many callbacks and Easter eggs that it does within itself. Mm-hmm. That is just done so incredibly well. And and the parallel between the lost children and was life not more civilized and more well put together in a more supposed quote unquote savage life than trying and struggling under the boot of the corporate heel, or the heel of the corporate boot rather. Mm-hmm. It's such a fascinating parallel, and to also know what Cassian's sister clearly has gone through, and everything about that, it breaks my heart a little bit, because he's literally looking in the worst possible places to try to find a sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but he's never given up hope, and I love that about it. It's these clashes of these. He's a gray, grizzled, dark character, but he has such a glimmer of he's just trying and hoping that he'll find a sister someday. Mm-hmm. And it's great.
Yeah. On going off of that, I want to shout out the end of the third episode there, where we kind of get the parallel imagery of him as a young kid being taken out out to the stars mm-hmm. by Marva, and then that juxtaposed against him now leaving Ferrix with Luthen, and kind of going on that next chapter of his journey in a very similar kind of state, in a similar echo of, all right, your life's about to change dramatically and we're going up into the bigger broad world.
Also shout out to that moment when Luthen's interrogating Cassian about how'd you do it? Tell me, how did you do it? Were you about to say that?
That was what I was about to segue into, is I wanted to touch on that scene in particular, because I love that mm-hmm. he's we get the sense that he's known about Cassian for a while, and he's wanted to meet Cassian for a while, from what Bix kind of says. So he's finally getting to ask him the questions that he's been asking or been wondering about and stuff. And so I love that. Okay, how did you get this thing? And Cassian's you just act like you belong, and they would never suspect that I could sneak into there, because they're so arrogant. There's that sequence is,
they could never imagine somebody like me breaking into their house.
Yeah.
Such a fucking good, such a great moment.
And I also,
go ahead, Logan.
I was just gonna say, I want to give a shout out to Stellan Skarsgård in general, but mm-hmm. I think one of the funniest sequences of the entire thing is when he's on the ride, the ferry in,
he's got the commuter being blah 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 blah.
It's so good. You're just chewing his ear off, and it's so fucking funny.
I work in
propulsion.
Time. I work in propulsion, thrusters, lifters.
Everything about that. And part of me was is this guy going to actually be an agent? It's just nope. He's just an old guy who just is trying to talk and is just shooting the shit for the entire ride. And it's the fact that Stellan Skarsgård's character has given him just nothing to work with, and he's And great, and then just goes off to like the next. It just keeps going and going, and like never just stops, and like recognizes that he's just not invested in the conversation. Was
Last
so
words,
funny.
Mind your wallet.
Yeah,
Like just such a great
so
like
good.
It once again it touches on those things where it's like they didn't have to go so hard in the world building on this planet that we might not see again.
Right.
But they go that freaking hard on it, and it's great.
Yeah. That was another great fun scene. Because it's like is just especially because of like just how relatable that is. You know, all those times we've been on a plane and somebody like, we don't want to talk to people, but people want to talk. and it's like, all right. Yeah. Go ahead and tell me your life story. Thanks. I'm glad this is only an hour-long flight to LA, and then I can just be done with this. But yeah, I'm very excited for the dynamic between Cassian and Lucen. Luthen.
It's Luthen. Also, shout out to Cassian's pistol. Still one of the coolest pistols in all of Star Wars. It's like its flip chamber reloading feature is just still the coolest.
Agreed.
And yeah, they had a fun little like because another element of that sequence is I did love the like rule number 1, like make your exit, or maybe it was rule number 2, make your exit on your way in.
That's rule number 1.
Was it rule number 1?
Oh no, that's rule number 2. You're right. That's rule number 2. You're right.
Yeah, I think rule number 1 is just like know your exit or something. No. Rule number 1 was something, but like the fact that he's telling these rules, and that he basically like planted explosives on his way in, fearing that like they were gonna run into some trouble. I was like, okay, yeah, and given some of the things we've seen in trailers, I get a sense why he's overly cautious and paranoid and stuff. But yeah, it's like I love that mentality because of how cleanly it feeds into the Cassian that we eventually see in Rogue One. The having K2SO there ready to, cover exits and stuff like that. Just thought that was a really fun sequence. And then like the brutality of that like factory warehouse metal shop or whatever, just shit just raining down and demolishing people and stuff. Is like, yeah, that's all right, that's a dangerous place, better get out of there. And that, by the way, I think the whole escape as well.
I think the cube, the thing that can like track whatever starships and whatever parsecs or whatever, I think that'll be the tie-in to it. Like, I think, because this is what happens in corporate structures. Straight white men fail upwards. And I have a feeling that they'll discover that box and they'll be like, oh, actually, you were onto something. And he'll fall upwards because of that and keep chasing Andor. I think that's what's going to happen anyway. That's my thought. I just want to put that out there.
It'll be interesting to see if that pans out. Anything anybody didn't like about the series? Or are we all just pretty hot on it?
I think it's great. I mean, again, I think it is. I mean, I think it's just great, right? Like, I think, especially for me, where, it feels like it was forever ago, but it was actually this year when I was, we watched Book of Boba Fett, and it was just sort of like they have no idea what they're doing with this. It's like it's just very clearly like this is a Boba Fett story that's not at all about Boba Fett, and they don't care, and there's just so much extra filler in here because Boba Fett sucks as a character, and you can't do a story around him. And so like let's just try to fill it in with like a Mandalorian 2.0 story, and let's fill it in with like here's stuff about like the Tusken Raiders, here's just like all these random things, here's a million cameos. And it was just like so directionless.
Here's Star Wars version of mods.
Yeah, and so it's so nice to see a story that has such a clear sense of purpose and direction and knows that it was one to do right from the get-go, right? And really the only thing I would say that I'm not 100% in love in is Star Wars live action series are beginning to really love doing like flashbacks a lot. And it is almost always the thing I'm least interested in. And that is true here as well. Whenever we get the flashbacks, it's like, this is nice. I am less invested in the story than I am the actual like present day stuff. But even the flashbacks are done really well and they add really cool moments to it. So like they're used so sparingly that they still work here. I would just say in the future, a lot of the Star Wars series are starting to use a lot of flashbacks, and we don't necessarily need flashbacks all the time.
Well, at least these weren't back to tank flashbacks for entire episodes.
Yeah, sure. 100% agree with that.
I will say I'm super curious because they mentioned Cassian's father, and I'm wondering if the guy who showed up at the end of the third episode, who's it's Marvine is her name? Marva's like partner, if that's if Marva's partner is like quote unquote Cassian's father, I'm really curious because like there's that line that Luthen throws out where he says, "Oh yeah, and they'll drag him out, beat him, drag him like through town, and then hang him in the square, just like they did your father." And like that does like that lights something in Cassian that I really like because it's something that we hadn't really seen. Because even when he's acting against the security guards at the beginning of the first episode, it's not out of like there's no like fiery like pure anger. The only time you really see that is when Luthen mentions his father, and there's mention of Cassian having a record, like an Imperial arrest record,
right? Because
he interfered in an arrest and assaulted a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
And so I do hope we get a fallback into that on some level. I'm very curious about that because it was so subtle and small. And so is that dude Cassian's quote unquote father? Like, because we know he sees Marva as his mother. Period. Yeah. Very much so. Like to the point where his one flaw in his plan on laying low literally is he's too concerned about Marva to not have comms with the droid to know where things are, like where the money is going to be left for her. Like he's done so much to try to make sure he takes care of her that it actually ends up hurting his plan in the end. And like, I'm really like, so is this guy his father? Like, I want to see, like, if we get more flashbacks, like we've gotten at kind of the pace we've gotten them, I like to see more of them, but I do not want back to tank flashback episodes. I don't want that. Yeah. I would really appreciate the way they've done it. I will say if this had come out episode by episode from episode 1, I don't know if I'd be as invested or interested.
It's so interesting that you both said that. I actually really liked, I think, the self-contained nature of each episode. Like it actually really worked for me because a little bit like Trevor said, they are each so like distinct almost. Like they each kind of end as like their own act in a way that I actually think they flow together really well. So if they had just been week to week, I think I still would have really enjoyed like where episode 1 leaves us off, where episode 2 ends off for us, and then where episode 3 ends off. Like, I don't know, like, so that's why I'm not that worried about them going forward on a week to week basis, like Trevor mentioned. Like, I am sort of encouraged by that because I haven't watched any of them back to back. For all of them, I had at least like a couple hours of a gap. And so I you know, I'm excited to see them go week to week.
Right. The good news is you guys don't get to hear me, or you don't have to hear me talk about how much I hate Tim for 3 weeks. You just get it this one time.
Yeah, there we go. That's nice.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a perk, certainly.
That's a perk.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they do flashback wise, because I remember we talked back when we originally were talking about Book of Boba Fett. And that first episode had like such a prominent kind of flashback. The idea that like, oh, that's going to be kind of a carried throughout the season. And then the fact that like those flashbacks got dropped midway through the season.
Yep.
And it was just, okay, yep, no flashbacks anymore. We're done with the Tusken storyline. I will be curious to see if this follows a similar suit in terms of like, those were the flashbacks to him on Kenari. And that's it. And then he's eventually the Cassian that we know, or if there will be like continued, like here's young Cassa learning and getting to, know Marva and stuff like that. Because yeah, I mean, like just my personal read was that the father that he was alluding to was the partner, and that, because I think their relationship is like left intentionally vague or whatever. But yeah, my kind of personal reading until it is shown otherwise was, oh yeah, like they end up being like the adoptive parents of Cassian, and we clearly don't see the other one in this run in the modern day. So yeah, maybe he was the one that got hung up. But at the same time, like if instead that is a reference that Luthen knows who Cassian's real father was from before this mining incident or whatever, like that's gonna also be very interesting and like to explore, because like we're not even introduced to his biological father in that regard. So what would that look like? So,
and it could just be a third person, like a person later in Cassian's life who becomes the father figure to him.
Sure. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the report card then. Let's give the first 3 episodes of Andor here a grade from A+ to F. Logan, we'll start with you. What do you want to give Andor?
I'm gonna give it an A. I don't usually do pluses or minuses, but like I guess I would do an A- if I did. I think it's great. I think it's really good. I think it's about as great a start to a new Star Wars series as you could ask for, really. The fact that pretty much none of us had any sort of like qualms or criticisms of it, I think is a testament to just how strong it starts off. I think it is a dope film noir story. I think it's a dope, like morally ambiguous gray story. I think the cast of characters around Cassian is great. And I love the fact that it is just such a small, granular story that has no real significance at all in the larger universe, other than just this one dude is going to become important 5 years from now. And I think it's really, really like special in that regard as well. And then the last thing I would say is I think it is, out of all of the Star Wars TV shows we've got so far, I think it is the most beautiful one. It is so gorgeous to look at constantly. And those nighttime shots on like that opening planet are some of, I think, the best looking Star Wars stuff is done since the movies. It's great.
Cool. Cameron, what do you want to give it?
I would just have to straight up just give it an A. I think that normally I'd be worried because it's 12 episodes, but if you really think about it, we got one like hour and a half long, or like 2 hour long episode, really. That they like kind of like its own little film to start off the entire thing.
And we're already a quarter of the way through it too.
We're already gonna get 3 more of this.
Yeah.
And I think it was so smart for them to do that because one, like, drags down the run time of how many weeks we're going to be dealing with. So you get 10 instead of the 12 weeks. I think that's really, really smart. I think that just these 3 episodes coming together like this, I think are just, like I said, the way that it bookends so many things, the way that it sets up so many things for you to realize, like, the ship he's been like holing up in is actually kind of like, quote unquote, his first home off of all, like, it the way, sorry, I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. Not backtrack, but like reel it back in here. It's an A. It's an A because I think it's just absolutely solid straight through. The series could, like, I hope it maintains what it's doing. I hope it succeeds in landing itself, because it gave itself the best possible start it could. So, without a doubt, like, just what a great start.
Cool. Yeah, A's across the board. It gets an A from me as well. I thought this was a really good trio of episodes to kind of introduce us to Cassian and his cast of characters. And even if we'd never see any of those other characters again, I'm still like glad for the moments that we had with them and the little bits of story that we had, because they were just great moments that fleshed out relationships that have led to Cassian being who he is. And yeah, I thought there was just a lot of really cool stuff in there. Looking forward to seeing where it goes next. Time for extra credit. Other suggestions, if you like this one. Surprise, surprise, Rogue One is at the top of that list, as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Then we have the original trilogy of Star Wars: New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and lastly, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Are
a lot of really great stuff there, and The Book of Boba Fett. A lot of really great stuff.
There you go. Extracurriculars. Anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus this week?
I know for sure me and Trevor are watching She-Hulk because we just did an episode about that on D+. You should go check that out.
Yeah, I also am watching She-Hulk.
It's great.
You can listen to an episode of That Nerdy Site where I give my first takes on the first few episodes of She-Hulk.
It's very good.
I will say, so I did watch all 3 of these episodes back to back the night they went live, as I often do. And so last night, yesterday basically, when She-Hulk went live, I was like, oh crap, I got it was like 12:30 before I remembered, hey, there's a new episode of She-Hulk I can watch as well. So yeah, I've been keeping up with She-Hulk, of course. And then it was a very busy week on D Plus for me. We talked about it on That Nerdy Site show this week, but I finished watching the Light and Magic series of documentary stuff in this last week. Really, really recommend that. Shout outs to that. If you want more of my thoughts on that specifically, you can go watch or listen to this last week's That Nerdy Site show. I watched the making of for the Obi-Wan series as well as Thor Love and Thunder that came out. Nothing like earth-shattering or groundbreaking in those. Though there is a scene in the Thor Love and Thunder one where they were very clearly shooting the Natalie Portman transforming into the mighty Thor, because they show her on wire work in front of the shards of Mjolnir kind of thing. It's well, that's a thing that very clearly just got cut out of the movie. And I think the irony was they're while they're showing that scene, somebody else is talking about oh yeah, we put all this work into such and such and these designs and these elements, and all this detail work on costuming and stuff. And it was basically that sequence, and then a guy that you barely see in the movie or something. Oh yeah, no, sorry, I'm confusing. They talk about Dionysus and all the work that they put into making the Dionysus outfit and costume and stuff, and all these little detail things. And he's so hopefully that shows up well. And I'm just dude, that guy got relegated to a deleted scene, my guy. I'm so sorry.
It'd be like that sometimes, man. It'd be like that sometimes.
But yeah, so both those were fine. Nothing huge to write home about. The Obi-Wan one was, I will say, interesting in it has a lot of the Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen coming back, and there are just elements where they're just watching old scenes with a camera shooting them, and so it's a little weird in how some of those elements are staged, but still good stuff. So yeah, shout out to all the other stuff that's out there on Disney Plus these days. I believe other than that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you both for joining me to talk about the first few episodes of Andor here. As I said at the top, this runs until late November, so once it wraps up, we'll probably do we'll circle back around for a full series wrap up there before we dive into the holiday month of Christmas stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that whenever we circle around to it. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, we're recording this on Friday, like Trevor said at the top of the show, but that also means that this is the last ever episode of Friday Night Dying Light. A massive project. I tweeted about it earlier. It is the biggest project that I've worked on since the entirety of KGN/Naughty Gamers. Outside of that entire site and project, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. And it was a tremendous effort. I want to thank Trevor so much for being kind of the guy reminding me to do to make sure to get him the episodes every week.
Yeah, you want to send this over so I can get it uploaded?
Yeah. Especially during what has been without a doubt one of the busiest and most intense couple of months of my life over the last 4 months. That have been extremely difficult and could not have been easy to try to keep me on track with that. So I want to thank him for that. We'll talk more about it, I think, on this week's That Nerdy Site show. But I finished that. Go check it out. It's been a long time coming. This game literally came out in February, I think. End of January.
Maybe January still.
It's
definitely been a while.
Time's a flat circle, yeah.
Yeah. When you said Book of Boba Fett was ended at the beginning of this year, I was like, bullshit, what the hell?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, it came out, I believe, end of January this year.
Yeah, February 4th. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. So beginning of
Fact checks.
Of that. Yeah. So it was just a tremendous experience getting to play through this game. Once again, shout out to the development team and specifically the PR team for sending us that copy, because
they got a lot of mileage out of that. I tell you what, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. If it's about hours of content, they definitely got their money's worth.
Yeah.
And eventually at some point I just got like tired of waiting, so I just sat down and played the entire game myself.
That's right.
Over the course of a week while I was waiting for Cameron to finish it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it in that week anyway.
Nope.
Nope. Yeah, just massive shout out to that entire project. It was a tremendous regardless of what the outcome is for the show itself and what it's actually done numbers wise for us. I think as far as showing we can do a long-term project with a rate with a regular output, I think meant a lot, at least to me, about the proving it to myself and also proving it to everybody else that this could work.
Okay.
Numbers be damned, we did it.
It was a nice little companion piece to that Bond show, being our other long form standalone project this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trevor can introduce me, I guess.
Speaking of, I'll throw it to you. You follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Loggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I was also going to shout out the finale of Friday Night Dying Light, right? And I think me and Cam each took on early this year and throughout the entire year 2 big projects, right? There are what, 25 plus episodes of Friday Night Dying Light, something like that, 30 episodes
34,
of the show.
34 episodes.
34 episodes of that.
And 26
exactly.
of
we did 26 of that Bond show and just these giant, plus 25 written reviews of that Bond show, plus a couple of dumb companion pieces along the way and the giant 8,000 plus word ranking of all the movies. And so I've loved to see me and Cameron each take on these big projects and each just see them through to the end and be really proud of them. And I think,
also massive shout out to Trevor for being the companion on both of those.
Right. Yeah. And I think, no matter what else, we did that, Cam. And I think, that Nerdy site did these 2 things. And so I think this has been the year that I'm probably the most proud of the site because we've each taken on these 2 projects and kind of shepherd them through from an idea to executing on it to actually finishing it. And I think it's super exciting. 34 weeks is a hell of a long time to do something and to get to the end of it. And so everyone go check it out. It is a great run. There are a lot of quintessential Cameron Abbott TM moments throughout the series. A particular favorite from the very first episode is Cameron spending way too long on the menus and just getting into the game itself. And Cameron is absolutely one of the best of us. And so it has been a joy to have 30 plus hours getting to watch him play through Dying Light.
I will say, I remember from that specific moment kind of having this conversation with Cam afterwards and being so next time we do this, probably do all the settings stuff off camera. Yeah. And I've definitely done that a lot myself in my Let's Plays as well. That's not really the most engaging content of if the first 5 minutes are going in and saying, yes, I want subtitles on. It's maybe I'll just set that up first and then I'll hit record.
Choosing the brightness options. Yeah.
I put a lot of pre-work.
Yeah,
the pre-work, the sets that I built for in I didn't use OBS. I used whatever the fuck I used. I don't know. XCast. I use Gamecaster. The different sets I did, the different variations of frame. We had some fun. We had a lot of fun doing these.
Yeah.
Massive shout out to those. Massive shout out to Trevor's current ongoing project of Skyrim.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and yes, inspired somewhat by Cameron, I've been doing a lot of revisit of Skyrim, which as of now I think is up to video 8. Cranking through these a lot quicker because they go out Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh yeah.
But I announced within our Slack that I have effectively up through like episode 28 uploaded to YouTube, and most of those already scheduled and like thumbnail and stuff ready. Like part of it was
because those go by quickly. Okay.
Yes.
I have so many in the can.
That's. I mean, yeah. It's like the schedule wise, I'm good through like basically through God of War Ragnarok, assuming it hits its date. Like early November, there are videos scheduled for all that stuff. And part of that even is also inspired by Cam of like, I want to be able to just work ahead and not have to worry about this for a while, especially with other just life things coming up here of like, it'll be nice to not have that just kind of constantly going. But yeah, so that's kind of our new ongoing long form project right now is just me doing Skyrim stuff. But then also if I end up having to sandwich in another let's play in there somewhere, it's like, all right, well, I've already got all that stuff scheduled, so I don't really want to have to like shift everything down the line. So I'll just be like, all right, I'm just gonna pop something in there as an extra bonus at this point. Because that's easier and I'm lazy. But yes, you can go find all of these things that we've been discussing at youtube.com/thatnerdysite. And yes, shout out to Cameron's finale of Friday Night Dying Light, 37 episodes strong. And yes. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed, and we're Star Wars themed, so may the Force be with you.
And also with you.